my magnets off of the actual board, and I'm gonna bring my mini Misty up. And thank you to everyone else that is starting to join in. Hello, welcome. I'm really excited to do the first Facebook Live for Brutus Monroe. And just so you know, there's only about an hour and a half left for you to get the Labor Day pricing on the website. It is 20% off. You use the code Labor Day, and that will get you 20% off the entire store. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my stamp here, position it right in the center, and then I'm going to take my Misty and push down on that stamp. So it's going to now adhere to our little acrylic spot. I'm going to take our locomotive ink, which is I'm using the mini ink pad here today because I love using the mini ink pads on my Misty because it makes it a little bit easier. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to ink up this stamp. And you'll see that our inks are have a very matte finish to them, which is really awesome whenever you're stamping. And I have a stamp that's stuck there, so let's get that out of the way. And then we're just gonna press down and we're gonna stamp our image. As I always say, of course, with the Misty, if you're using the Misty, don't stamp once, stamp multiple times because you have the ability to do that. You can see how it's a little bit of a blotchy image just because those magnets were kind of close to my image. You want to try to get the magnets kind of further away from the image so that you don't get kind of a blotchier look. But I'm going to go ahead and pop down the stamp one more time, and we're actually going to stamp him, I think, 3 times, just for good measure. You can see that we have a really good impression there now, but just one more time because while we have it on the Misty, it just makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that down there. I'm going to put my little ink away, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp him down. And there we go, easy peasy. So let's go ahead and move our magnets away. I'm gonna also move him to the side to allow him to dry. You can see how great that stamped image is there. I'm gonna move him to the side to let him dry. I'm gonna grab our squeaky clean stamp cleaner, and I'm gonna give it 2 spritzes. You don't really even need to give it 2 spritzes. You can probably give it much less, but I'm gonna give it 2 spritzes just for good measure. And I'm going to clean off my stamp. Now you'll notice here that my stamp is not coming completely clean, which is okay. You don't want your stamp to come completely clean. That tooth that you're going to have left over from the ink staining your stamp is good. It's very good, and it's going to make your stamps even healthier, if that makes sense at all, to have a healthy stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull my stamp off of my Misty. This is a larger stamp, so I'm going to pull it towards myself to get it off of the Misty. Obviously, I'm not going to be in the camera frame, so I apologize, but all I'm doing, there's no smoke and mirrors. I'm just pulling the stamp off of the Misty, and I'm going to go ahead and pop that guy back in its drawer, and I'm going to put that stamp away. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting the assembly pieces together for my cards. So I like to build my cards from the top down, and most people build them from the back up. I like to start with the top focal pieces. So this is our piece that's going to be obviously at the very top of our image, okay, or the top of our card. And let me move some of these pieces out of the way because we're going to do some spraying. So I want to have obviously some area here to spray with. And now I'm going to grab from the Mixed Elements paper pad. This isn't very Halloween-y, but luckily it is. It does have a lot of elements that I'd like to use for a Halloween type card. So first one I'm going to grab is a piece of the corrugated cardboard, okay? So I'm just going to pull this out of the pad, okay? There we go. And then let's see. I also would like a piece of the just plain burlap. So what I do with my pads, and you don't have to do this, is I just pull the pad apart. The new pads actually do not come padded like this. They come separate in a silo bag, so it's a little bit easier to take all your pieces out and use them. But we're going to use this, we're going to use this, and then I also would like to use this background from our brand new digital paper pad that is called Spooky Nights. So we have a whole bunch of different really cool patterns that we could choose from here, but I'm going to use this one because I love the moons, and I think they really lend themselves to the background of this stamp. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna first cut down this piece here, and I'm gonna use my rotary trimmer because the rotary trimmer from Fiskars works very, very well with corrugated cardboard as well as with any type of burlap. So this is my rotary trimmer, and I'm just going to cut this piece down to 3 inches because that's how much I would like to have seen on the card. And you can see how beautifully that rotary trimmer trims that down for us. So there's the top piece, and again, we're working our way down. So now I'm going to grab a piece of burlap, and this piece of burlap I'm going to cut down to 2 inches. So let's go ahead and grab that, and we're going to cut that down to 2 inches. Again, the rotary cutter makes beautiful work of cutting down these mixed element pieces, okay? So now, obviously, as you can see here, these pieces are very, very stark in nature, and they're very, very plain and bland. And if anybody has been following me for any duration of time at all, you know that I am not a very stark or bland individual when it comes to card making. So obviously we're going to want to add a little bit of color and a little bit of a little something, a little zhuzhing, as I always say, to these pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab what I call my spraying apparatus, which is just an old box that I use from some cardstock. And I'm just going to place this under the camera, and hopefully you guys are going to be able to see inside of it, and you can. Perfect. So I'm going to grab our piece of corrugated cardboard, and I'm going to grab this beautiful Oz shimmer spray. This is from our partnership with Tattered Angels, and I'm just going to spray this piece so that it adds some color to the actual piece. And again, we're just going to spray it kind of over and over again to give it some color. Okay, so now it doesn't matter if that color is super, I'm just going to grab a baby wipe because I sprayed myself a little bit. It doesn't matter if the color is super, super saturated. It's not going to make a big deal because we are just using this as an element to the piece, and you can see all that shimmer we have there. And then I'm going to take our burlap, and I'm going to spray our burlap with the aubergine color. And these sprays work beautifully with all of the elements in the pads. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to spray, and look how beautifully this is covering what was once just a plain, regular, everyday, kind of boring, unless you really, really like the look of natural burlap, which sometimes we do. And it kind of makes it come alive a little bit there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my heat tool, and just a regular heat gun, and I'm just going to hit these guys very quickly to give them a little bit of a quicker drying time. And this will dry pretty quickly on the burlap as well as on the corrugated cardboard. But it's always great to just add a little bit of heat to it so that you don't get, you know, it all over your hands whenever you're creating. But I like this little added bit of whimsy and shimmer because, of course, this card is a little bit more of a whimsical Halloween card. So let's go ahead and grab those two pieces, and those pieces are going to look great together. So let's pull this away, and we'll toss our spraying apparatus back over onto the table. And now we have two beautiful pieces that I think are going to look awesome on top of this piece of pattern paper. So now let's go ahead and we're going to get started on the watercoloring. So let's put these pieces of paper aside, and let's grab ourselves our craft mat. So we're going to use the embossing ink in a moment. We'll move that out of the way. We'll move that out of the way. And I'm just going to grab my little mat right here. You're going to see it. You're just going to see up in this corner. And I'm also going to grab a piece of tape so that I can tape down my craft mat. And obviously I'm going to be using some Halloween washi to tape this guy down because why not? Okay, so I've taped that guy down there, and right here is where I'm going to put the ink so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to watercolor this guy, and the cool thing about this is we're going to watercolor him with the exact same ink that we've used to stamp him with. So the Brutus Monroe ink, the #1 property of the Brutus Monroe ink is that you can watercolor with it even though it is permanent once it's dry, which is really cool because again, you really only need one ink to do really everything that you want to do with your project. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the jack-o'-lantern color right there up in the corner of my craft mat and grab a little bit of that color. We're just going to mixy. You can see it now becomes a beautiful watercolor, and we're just going to go ahead and paint his face. And it makes it super simple. You're just watercoloring. If you are not familiar with watercoloring, I do have a couple of videos over on the Christopher Allen Design YouTube channel where I show you some watercoloring techniques, but it's really simple, and you can see now that his face is very quickly watercolored. Very quickly, just like that. And I'm also going to use some of the orange that's left over to do the sticks that are coming out from the scarecrow. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my baby white and I'm going to use that to clean out my brush very quickly. If you get too much ink saturation in your brush, that's okay. You're just going to grab some squeaky clean and you're going to clean out the edge of your brush. So all you would do is take a little squeaky clean. Whoops, and my tape is moving here. I guess this isn't the best washi tape in the world. Hold on one moment while I fix that. There we go, because washi tape doesn't like to stick obviously to the craft mat because the craft mat is non-stick. And all you're going to do is take your brush, and you'll see there's actually some other colors in there that I should have washed out probably beforehand. That will take all that coloration out of the brush, and then you can go ahead and just swipe it down and it's easy peasy. I'm going to attach my lid to the end of my Brutus Monroe water brush. That's a nice feature of the brush so you don't lose your lid. And now I'm going to actually color his coat with some of the, I believe, the suede color, because I was going to use some cornflower, but I don't believe I have any cornflower here, so we'll use suede. I'm just going to pop a little bit of the suede color down here, okay, and just add a little bit of water, mixy, just like we did before. And then we're just going to go right on in and color in his jacket here, which again is super simple, couldn't be easier. We're just going to color in his jacket, and just so everyone has a heads up, this stamp set will be available on September 14th. It will be live in the store. It is from the Chuck Carson collection. We are super excited to bring him on as one of the illustrators here for Brutus Monroe, and we think he's really awesome. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the locomotive ink. Remember, this is the ink that we use to stamp it with, and we're going to pop down just a tiny bit of that color because we don't need a lot. Give ourselves some water here, pick up that color, and all we're going to do is color in very lightly this gravestone that is in the background, and also color in our little raven friend here. Okay, super easy, and the studio lights are making this look much lighter than it is. It's much darker on this side, so hopefully you'll be able to see that once I bring it up to the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and take some more of the squeaky clean and just zhuzh out the rest of that color and wipe our area clean. And then I'm going to take some aubergine, which is a beautiful purple in the collection, and swatch that out there. And then I am going to take some water just right out of the water brush, mixy, really simple, turns into a beautiful watercolor. And I'm just going to color in this whole background, kind of ignoring the clouds in the illustration, simply because those clouds can be filled in later with a with another color, with a ballpoint, white pen, whatever you would like to do. But I just like to do some really cool purple hues behind him because I think they really lend themselves to kind of an eerie Halloween night. So I'm just adding those colors, and you'll see that it just watercolors absolutely beautifully with no effort at all. Okay, then I'm going to clean out my brush one final time, and I'm going to do his hat as well as his patches in the cabbage color. So let's go ahead and clean this out with the squeaky clean. And again, you don't have to clean it out with the squeaky clean if you don't want to. It's just a habit of mine. And now I'm going to go ahead and take our cabbage color and dab some of that down. and grab some water here and mix it all up here. I'm just putting my inks back in. You only need a little tiny bit of the ink to get it ready to watercolor. And I think that makes his hat look great. We're gonna also add it to his patches. And there we go. We are all done with the watercoloring portion, which couldn't have been easier. So now I'm gonna take some squeaky clean and I'm gonna clean out my brush for the final time. You'll see how much ink was left in there that we could have used. And I would say that you wanna use that for, obviously, probably another project. But in this case, since we're on Facebook Live and we're live, we're just gonna continue right on. So there is our image all set and ready to go. So now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna put him to the side to dry, and we're gonna do a little bit of heat embossing. If you're new to heat embossing, welcome to the world of heat embossing. It's a lot of fun, and it creates a really cool dramatic effect very, very quickly with just a heat gun and your favorite embossing powder. The embossing powder we're using today is a new to the store embossing powder, but not new to probably quite a few of our friends out there in Brutus Monroe world. Just because we have had this color before. It is called Scarlet. It was an exclusive to the Brutus Monroe Inspiration box way back in February. So it is now finally made its debut in the store. So I'm just gonna take a piece of heavy cardstock and I'm gonna cut it down to, actually let's cut it down to 1 inch here. Okay. And we're just going to make sure that our happiest Halloween is going to fit on there, and it will fit on there perfectly. Great. And I'm going to take our 1 inch piece. We actually have 2 1 inch pieces there now to work with in case we make an oopsie. And we're going to use the smooth side, and I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper, which we'll just consider this our scrap paper, and I'm going to take a blending tool, and that blending tool I'm going to dip into our locomotive ink because we're going to make this look kind of spooky around the edges. So the Brutus Monroe inks also property number 3, I guess, because we've talked about watercoloring. We've talked about the permanent factor of it. They also blend beautifully. So I'm just going to use these to add some dimension and kind of some spookiness around the edge of a white piece of paper without actually using a dark or a black piece of paper here. So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off frame there, but let me go ahead and add a little bit more of this coloration here. And again, always start off of your piece and then add color to your piece and make sure it gives it this really cool kind of dimensional kind of smoky look that's going to look beautiful with our Scarlet embossing powder on top of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our piece here and I am going to heat emboss it. But first, we want to make sure that this ink is good and dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our heat tool again and I'm just going to heat this up just to make sure that it's good and dry. Because if it's not good and dry, the the embossing powder, or the embossing ink, is going to attempt to stick to the ink that is not yet dry. We don't want that. So make sure that your inked area is all dry, which it is now. I'm going to straighten that out just a little bit there. And then I'm going to grab my happiest Halloween stamp, which is going to go right about here, I think. And I'm going to grab my Brutus Monroe round acrylic block. This is my favorite acrylic block that we carry. I think it's your favorite acrylic block too, it seems, from the purchase of the acrylic blocks. I'm going to take the Brutus Monroe embossing ink. This comes in 2 sizes. This size is actually being discontinued. It's going to soon come in a 2 by 2 inch size, which is what all of our larger ink pads will become, which is very exciting because we're moving towards a different size. So let's go ahead. They'll be this size that are right here. They'll become this size. This is the new size of the detail ink. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and excuse my head if it gets into the frame, but I do want to get right on top of this because we only really have one opportunity, and if it's a little bit off, that's okay. We're not going to sweat it. Okay, so now we've stamped that down. Now I'm going to grab my Scarlet embossing powder, which is right here. This is the size that you'll get. That's why it's a little bit less expensive on the website. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that Scarlet embossing powder. And then just tap, tap, tap. And you can see that says now Happiest Halloween. It's stuck to the Brutus Monroe embossing ink that is specially formulated for our embossing powders. Okay. And this looks very bright red right now, but it's going to turn into kind of like a very deep red once it's heated. So I'm going to go ahead and get my heat tool heated up a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this beautiful red. And I'm also going to heat it up from the back, just for good measure. And then heat up the front again. Perfect. And now you can see that beautiful, beautiful red tone. Look at how awesome that is. Love that scarlet color. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm just going to chop this down to right about here. Okay, and then I'm going to pennant the other end, and we're going to do a very deep pennant on this one because it is a Halloween card, so we can get away with really cool, funky, super, super deep pennanting. And this is a heavier cardstock, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to cut into it, but there we go. And there is our super deep pennant. So how cool is that? I just think that's really, really awesome. Thank you to everyone that is now just joining in. I don't know if I can't see the comments or if no one's commenting or what's going on, but hello, if you're commenting, thank you for joining. And we're just rocking and rolling on this card today. So I just grabbed some heavier adhesive because I know I'm going to need that for our pieces here. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is now we have all of our pieces that we need for this really cool Halloween card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of our 6x6 card bases. These are available at brutusmonroe.com. I love 6x6 cards. I think it's like you're making a scene as opposed to just a regular card, and 6x6 gives you a lot of room to do that on. So we're going to go ahead and place our card base right here. I'm going to grab some adhesive, and this adhesive I'm going to use just to adhere the bottom layer, because obviously the bottom layer, let's move this out of the way so you guys can see a little bit better. And always check to make sure your card is opening the way you want it to open. And then we're just going to add our adhesive. This can just be a light adhesive that you're using on the first layer, because the first layer is not a super, super, super heavy layer. It's literally just the paper that is going on top, and everything else will be adhered to it. Again, it's your own personal preference how much adhesive you use. I'm going to go ahead and place this right on top of there. Perfect. 6x6 fits on 6x6. You can't mess up 6x6 square, because they just are squares that build on top of squares. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our piece right here that I think is gorgeous. Look at that. Can you see that cool glisten that's there? And I'm going to attach this piece, but this piece I am going to attach. Let me move this out of the way for a second. I'm going to grab some of our heavier duty adhesive on a roll. And this adhesive is great because you can just tear it. And I'm just going to place this right on the back here. We're going to do 3 pieces just for good measure, because this is going to be a heavy duty card. So 3 pieces going across the back. Just going to make sure we burnish down these pieces very, very well. And then we just remove the release paper, which is sometimes easier said than done, but hopefully, since we are live, the crafting gods will be on my side, and we'll get the release paper off pretty easily. There we go. And just one more, and then we'll be all set. And of course, the last one is the one that will give us trouble. Let's see here. I think I got it. There we go. Okay, so just push that piece back down. We'll pull those pieces up, go ahead and place this on the side. And then we're gonna place this right in the center. And this will be super, super sticky because again, we used that super, super sticky tape. So we're just gonna place this right here, right in the center. And I love that texture, and I love, it just adds, I think, so much to the card. Then we're gonna take this piece that we sprayed, and we're gonna pull a couple of these pieces off because I love frayed burlap. And what's cool about pulling these pieces off is the pieces underneath probably did not have a chance to suck up a lot of that spray because obviously we didn't use a ton of spray, so it's going to give us kind of a cool effect. Do you see that there? How some of it is not completely you know, painted, I guess you could say. It did not absorb it all. And then there's that piece there, which I think is super cool. So let's go ahead and throw away all of our little bunches there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use some glue on this piece because I don't trust that this piece will stick with the adhesive. So we're going to use some of the Brutus Monroe all-purpose glue. This is my favorite glue, and I think will very soon become your favorite glue. You can use it for not only regular crafting, but for household things as well. My uncle, Uncle Terry, hello, Uncle Terry out there, he probably won't ever see this unless I show it to him because he doesn't have Facebook. He uses it for household items, which I think is fantastic. So we're just gonna go ahead and place that down. It does dry completely clear and matte on burlap. So those little pieces that are sneaking through, you don't have to worry about those. And now we're going to just assemble our card. So I'm going to grab this little guy here, and I'm just going to very quickly cut him out. Very simply. It does not have to be super duper precise because again, this is a Halloween card. These are the cards that you're allowed to have a whole bunch of fun with and, you know, cut them out kind of haphazardly and funky like because it is Halloween and there are no rules when it comes to Halloween cards, which is why they're one of my favorites to create. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this little guy here and we are going to place him all the way over on the edge here. Okay, so I'm going to grab myself some pop dots. These are my favorite brand, scrapbook adhesive 3L. They're by far my favorite. Let me tell you why I like them, because they are all separate, they're easy to pull off, they're a great size, and they are super ultra sticky. So they've never let me down yet, and they also come in a dark grayish black color, which is really awesome. Because sometimes you don't want to be able to see the coloration that's under the card, and that is important whenever you're, you know, doing a card that has a darker background. So now we're just going to pull off our back pieces here. Really super simple. And make sure that most of them make it to the trash can. If you're like me, you have tons of these little confetti pieces all over your craft room or studio. And I'm just going to place this all the way over on the side there. Super easy, super simple. And now we're going to take our Happiest Halloween and we're going to see how much we need to cut off of him. So I left him long because I wasn't sure how much we would cut off. So I'm just going to grab and cut off all the way over to there because I think that that's perfect, because I like that there's going to be a little bit hanging over. So we'll take that and grab that right there, and I think that's perfect. And what I want to also do is I want to attach a little charm right here. So I'm going to actually grab a hole punch, and this one is a tiny little hole punch, and I'm just going to punch right up here in the corner. Okay, as close to the corner as I can. That will still give us, obviously, oops, I'm on the frame, that will still give us the ability to hold something there, because I'm going to put a little piece of twine through that. And then I found this really super cool, really funky charm from Blue Moon. Look at these charms. How cool are these charms? So I'm going to attach this charm, which I think this silver one will look the coolest. Does anybody want to comment and say? I don't know how long it takes for the comments to get in here, so it might not even be worth it to comment because I might not see it for a little while. But I'm going to go ahead, and this charm is going to get attached right there. And I'm going to use a piece of gray twine because I don't want, this is also from the Blue Moon collection. I'm going to use a little bit of gray twine because obviously we don't want it to be too flashy because the key is already pretty flashy. And I'm going to put this twine through our little banner here before we start to adhere it, because we're going to want to glue this piece down as well. So that little tiny hole, we're just going to pull our twine right through just like that. And then I'm going to take my little key here, and look how, I mean, this key is so cool. It's a little skull key. Happy Halloween. Even though it's Labor Day. Happy Halloween, because we're making Halloween cards. And then I'm just going to attach this right on there with a little knot. And you'll see it's kind of flopping around right now, but it won't do that once it's attached with the glue. But I'm going to go ahead and attach that right on the side here. And I'm going to just tie it in kind of a wonky knot, so to speak, because again, it is a Halloween card, so who cares if it's a wonky knot. And I'm going to cut off these pieces here. And you can see that little wonky knot that we have there. And then I'm going to glue this guy right on here, and then our little charm will just sit ever so nicely right there like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take my glue and use my glue right on the back, and you can be kind of liberal with the glue on the back of this piece because it is a heavier cardstock that we used. I'm not going to glue down these pieces down here because I want to give them a little bit of a 3D effect. So I'm going to grab my key and grab my little banner here and stick down my banner all the way to the edge here. Make sure it's kind of centered. Again, it doesn't really matter because the Brutus Monroe glue is going to adhere to that burlap pretty quickly. The Brutus Monroe glue is very, very strong and very quick drying. So quick that I don't even know how long we'll have a chance to move this. But you can see here now, I mean, it's already really adhering very well. I mean, I wouldn't suggest using any other glue and picking up your card and going like this with it right after you glue it. But you can see here that we have our little key, and it says Happiest Halloween. What I probably am going to do is go around the edges here with a little bit of that locomotive color. But I think that this would just be super cool and super fun to give to a friend or a family member for Halloween. On Periscope earlier, we made this card that is very similar but altogether also very different. So I want to show you that very quickly. So we used different papers, but we used the same stamp. And also we used kind of the same card design. So it made it super simple. You can see this little charm is just tied on there in a totally different way. And then this charm, again, is tied on there, but it's glued down. This one is glued down as well, but this one's had a lot more time to dry. And I would just, you know, kind of curl up the edges, curl up the sides here, because that just makes it look even more Halloween-y. And there we are. So those are two cards using the Brutus Monroe Spooky Nights paper stack, which is this stack right here. There's a whole bunch of pieces. This is not from that stack, so we'll pull that out. Or that one is not from the stack either, but you can see this is the Spooky Nights, and I've only used 3 pieces of paper, and since this is digital, you can print as many as you would like. So that is all I have for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I enjoyed doing a live Brutus Monroe Facebook Live for everyone, and I can't wait to do another one. Maybe we'll start scheduling some Facebook Lives. You have about an hour to head over to Brutus Monroe and still use that Labor Day one-word discount code, and then that code obviously will expire tomorrow. And also all of our full-size ink pads, which are the size of ink pads that are being retired, will be gone forever. So this is the last opportunity to get them. At this point right now, it is going to expire at midnight. So it will be the last time for you to get these really cool premium chalk ink pads. And again, these colors are staying the same, but the pads are changing. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of Brutus Monroe, and thank you for being a part of the group. And I will chat with all of you guys soon. So have a great evening, and that's all. Bye-bye.